Hello, hello. It's 12 o'clock in Baltimore. Good afternoon. My name is Jared Forte, and welcome to session 19 of Notes from the Route. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to sit down with me, and as we workshop some ideas that I'm writing about that I think are interesting. I hope the conversation is fruitful for you, and I know that your feedback and your and the conversation that will follow, hopefully, will be beneficial for both of us. We do this every Monday through Thursday at noon Eastern, right here on G Plus. Also, you can watch a live stream on YouTube, or if you prefer, you can go over to jaredforte.com/live, and you can watch the live stream right on my website. So the topic for today is the psychology of stakes. Full disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist. These aren't, this is not supposed to be some sort of diagnosis for you or your situation. It's more observations about my own experiences. So, take it for what it's worth. But the ideas I think can be very useful when you think about the way that your emotions play a role in the decisions that you make, and your the productivity that you have towards the work that you're doing. So stakes. In the pre-roll, or in the note that I put ahead of this session, I said that I fold under pressure, and that's not entirely true. There have been many situations in the course of my life, in my experiences, whether it be in the Army, when I was in Bosnia, driving down narrow roads, and big 5-ton truck with landmines on either side of the road. You can't veer off the road, but then there's oncoming traffic and people riding bikes that are stacked high with all sorts of, looks like everything they're on is stacked high on a bike. They're coming towards you in a 5-ton truck. That's a pretty high pressure situation. There were some high pressure situations in the desert, when Operation Iraqi Freedom jumped off. I was over there. I didn't fold then. Then there's been other less intense situations that weren't life and death that I was able to stand up. So I don't always fold under pressure. But in general, my disposition is not towards high stakes behavior. But I will acknowledge that in many cases, high stakes are great. They're awesome. And the reason I say that is, high stakes situation can induce, the state that people describe as flow, sort of the zone. When you think about it in like athletic terms, you see people who just seem to be, they can't miss. If there's a certain amount of pressure or a certain level of risk is involved in order to reach or experience that type of locked-in state. So stakes are great. They increase your focus. So they create a situation where it's easier for you to hone in and focus because all of your energy is pulled into your survival. It's like the fight or flight reflex that you have, that adrenaline rush that brings you into the moment. So in that sense, and for motivation and inducing flow, having elevated stakes can be a positive thing. But it can also be extremely addictive, like the chemical reaction that goes into your body, the high that you get when you're in that zone, the emotional energy that you consume. It can be in an addictive situation. There's a book that came out earlier this year called The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler. And he talked about how extreme sports athletes have essentially hacked flow. They know how to get into flow because that's the only way that they can survive in these extreme life or death adventure sport things they're doing, surfing huge waves and doing incredible stunts. You have to really be focused and locked in. But there's a dark side of that, that after you come down off of that, the chemical, and you come back to normal, your body craves that rush again. And those chemicals, when those chemicals leave your body that rush into your brain when you're in this frenzy state or when you're on this high, they can leave you in a state of depression once it's over. But it is nice to know that we have these reserves. It's nice to know that when it really matters, we have this ability to arise to the occasion. When the stakes are really high, there's a mechanism in us that allows us to rise to those occasions. But the question I have, and you know, I have to always think about this in terms of my own productivity and in the work that I do, and the way that I try to manage my emotions around the stuff that I'm working on, is whether it's healthy to kind of artificially raise the stakes in the situation that you're in. You know that when the stakes rise, you respond, your body changes, and you rise up to the occasion when the stakes go up. But what about when you artificially raise the stakes? And what I mean by that is you tell yourself this story. You have this internal dialogue that elevates the situation that you're in into something that is a life and death thing. It raises the game. The stories that you tell is that this thing is so important that you're working on that if it doesn't work, it will ruin you. And you can go on this old train of thought to increase the pressure around a situation that in reality is not that serious. But you can tell yourself these stories, you can overthink something, you can jump ahead in the situation, you can castle build. And what I mean by that is you take a task, you have an idea, and it's a small idea, and it's something that you can do, but you keep adding on to it, and you keep adding extra things onto it. And before you know it, it's this huge thing that's way beyond your scope of act. You know, it's more than you can do, and it's overwhelming. And then the anxiety comes. We create anxiety when we have our thoughts move beyond the scope of our ability to act. Excuse me. When our thoughts move beyond our ability to act, we produce anxiety. Now, you build up whenever you're in this either castle building state where you've made your idea so big that you don't know what the first step is, or you've jumped ahead and imagined every bad scenario. These are all places where you can't act. But even though you can't act, the thought in your mental state forces your body to produce all of these chemicals, you know, the same things, the fight or flight. That emotional energy is there, but you can't do anything with it. So you just left with all of this energy and no way to really put it into action. You don't have any focus. What the things that you're thinking about are not in your control. So there's no outlet for this power that you have because you've taken it out of the present. You've done what you've time traveled. You've gone into the future and you imagine all of these things. You thought about it and you get hyped up by it, or you get worried about it. Either way, there's energy there, but you don't have any direct way to take an action to move you towards it. And that energy just builds up in your body as anxiety and stress, and it's not productive. So stakes are really great when you can act, when you are in the moment and when you're present. Then high stakes are awesome. And all flow, all of the superhuman things that they talked about people doing in Rise of Superman in that book. I recommend it. I'll link to it on the blog when this gets posted up. But they're incredible things that people do when they're in this enhanced state. And we all want to be there, but we can't be there when we're time traveling. All of that energy is focused in the present. And the anxiety that we build up when we artificially raise the stakes with the stories that we tell ourselves about what we have to do, they don't lead us to that place where we can really perform. So we kind of romance this notion of Superman. This is page 2 of the notes. Who doesn't want to operate on that level? I mean, who doesn't want to be in the zone? You know, that's like a dream scenario, and it feels incredible when you are working and you're in the flow and you're in the groove. You always want to be there. Who doesn't want the rush of being that productive? You feel like, I mean, you feel like there's dirt on your shoulder and somebody needs to brush it off for you. It's really a powerful feeling. But I think it's interesting that the only way to reach that level of productivity and clarity and strength and power of action is not just through these high stakes situations. I'm gonna reference a couple more books. One is Success Through Stillness. That's by Russell Simmons. And the other one is called Thrive by Arianna Huffington. Now, I bring those two people up because they're both well-known people. They're both high achievement personalities. They've accomplished a lot in the world of business. You know, so they're known and they're hard-charging people. Yet they recognize the importance of a different way to achieve that power, that personal power, and achieve that state of flow. And that's through stillness. They take the complete opposite approach. The stakes come all the way down because you're right here. They talk about meditation and practices like that. So you don't have to raise the stakes to get that laser focus and be in the flow. You can also back away and be still and achieve the same level of focus and perform. So I thought it was interesting that those are two people that are prominent right now that are looking at things in a little different way because they recognize how damaging and stressful the high stakes game can be. I think that, I talked about sort of the getting used to the rush. It can be an addictive situation. And any addiction is subject to withdrawal. And when you have a high stakes addiction, then you're addicted to the drama that brings that situation out. You can be when you're addicted to drama, you emotionally raise stakes in your relationships and you create conflict just because you need to have something going on. You procrastinate or you show up late to stuff just so you can feel the rush of rushing, just to get that energy going. You need to manufacture that state because you've become addicted to it. You've become dependent upon that heightened state to even perform. So the alternative to sort of succumbing to, or I would say falling victim to or struggling with that type of addiction is, you can just intend to be present. And it's not an easy thing. It's a practice. But when you intend to be present, and you break one day at a time, you gradually break that cycle of needing to rush, then you stop having to borrow this negative emotional energy from the future, the anxiety. You go into the future and worrying or pulling energy from the future and bottling that up and not having anything to do with it. Or you can be borrowing emotional baggage or energy from the past, which is regret, which you can't do anything about. All those things, those aren't your sources anymore. Those sources are weak. Ultimately, though, if you can let go of borrowing that energy, you can tap into the energy that's in the present, like right now. When you can notice now, what you'll find is now it's pretty good. Whatever you're thinking about in the future, whatever might be happening that you think might happen that could be wrong, or whatever has happened that you don't protect or that you're not particularly a fan of, that's all well and good. But if you think about it, right now, it's pretty good. At this very moment, outside of the things that you're worrying about, or it's pretty good. And now you can actually do something. So when you take your energy in the present and you work in the present, then you can be Superman. You can do all of these things. It's not easy, but it's an option. So something to think about. So those are the notes for today. The psychology of stakes. Like I said, we do this every Monday through Thursday at noon Eastern time. I really would appreciate your feedback. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the quickest way to get the episodes because they don't go up on the blog right away. I have other writing that kind of comes in between, and I want to give a little bit of room, spread it out a little bit. So if you want to get it immediately, get like the first draft, because that's what this is, then subscribe to the YouTube channel. Or if you can get in my circle on G Plus and let me know, hey, I want to be notified of the episodes, get on the mailing list, and then I'll shoot you an email once a week to preview the week's episodes coming up, so you can decide which ones you want to watch, and link you back to the old episodes in case you miss something, just so you can kind of stay in the loop. It's an easy way to do it. So you can sign up for my mailing list on my website, jaredforte.com. Any place you find a box, it's all one list. I'm not that sophisticated. Everybody's going to get the same thing. It's just going to be a once a week email to let you know what's going down with the show. So do that, and I'll see you later on. Thanks for stopping by.